First of all, I'm not sure if I'm publishing this in the appropriate location. Usually, all I do is lurk and read the chaos of others. However, I have to get this out of here, because really, what the devil, I swear I started the night thinking I was just being paranoid. So if you've ever had a moment where you're like, am I the only one seeing this? Please let me know. However, I wanted to drop kick someone by the end. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Anyway, some background. Haley, 27, and Douglas, 28, ma'am, have been boyfriends for nearly 2 years, if you can call it that. We've been together for around 13 months now. We moved in for love, but it's not a charming OMG situation. For the most part, it was useful. I thought it would be fun because his lease was up and my place was falling apart. And until it wasn't, it sort of was. I will return to that. We have been invited to this party this weekend. Claire, our landlord's daughter, said, "Hey, you guys are always so chill," even though they weren't our pals. Why the rent-related stuff? Come hang. Claire and I have only had one face-to-face encounter. Douglas is all over it, claiming it will be beneficial for networking, but she is a huge believer of group tax for rent reminders, rather than in person. For what purpose, I have no idea. He always says things like, "Bro, you're not running for office anyway. In reference to arbitrary occurrences. Since I haven't gone out in weeks, I simply responded yes, assuming there would be complimentary munchies at the very least. Additionally, I could plunge early if things were dull. When we arrive, it's far fancier than I had anticipated. A Spotify playlist is playing on a Bluetooth speaker that doesn't sound like it was thrown in a toilet, which is uncommon in these kinds of settings, and there is real glassware. But there's an odd feeling from the start. Everyone seems to know each other except for us, and Douglas is acting as though he's on. Claire is wearing this velvet shirt that looks really nice. I have no idea, like some trash or a talk show. He constantly nudging me, as if he wants me to work the room with him, is very handsy and laughs too loudly. The chips are the only reason I'm there. I start off just rambling and talking to Claire about how our dryer occasionally makes an odd noise and how our shower pressure is terrible. Additionally, I see that Douglas is already drinking quickly. He is holding a second cup. When I joke that he's going hard for a Saturday after finishing my first, he simply shrugs and says something about needing to relax. Not even a smile after putting up with my persistent pestering for a week. Not sure. Even though it hurt, I ignored it because, well, whatever. His comebacks are typically sardonic, but lately they've become more sharp. Guess who gets the irate text from Claire? If I don't remind him about the bills, I know I may be a bit too on top of things occasionally. Not him, spoiler alert. After about half an hour, I realize that I'm essentially following him about and picking up after him. He's chatting to two people that I hardly recognize, and I hear him say something like, "Oh, Haley, very helpful. Without her, I couldn't keep my apartment tidy." Not even in his voice. It's not an honor. He seems to be making fun of me. He starts talking about how he never has to worry about his rent being late because someone is essentially his accountant-made combo, and I try to dismiss it once more. The boys chuckle, but they're not sure if it's humorous. He only gives me a wink when I give him this look. I'm irritated now, so I head to the kitchen to fetch another drink. It gets worse from here. I suppose I should mention that Douglas has always been one of those people that jokes around but is really being cruel. For example, he will say, "Lighten up if I call him out, it's merely a joke. What's causing your sensitivity?" However, he never lets it go, and it's constantly about things I do for him or things I forget. Like it's a running bet he will bring up the incident in which I unintentionally shrank his hoodie. But it's old news if I bring up his stuff. As I watch him get more inebriated throughout the evening, I'm messaging my friend Avery beneath the table to divert my attention from Paul before I hurl a chip at his skull. Perhaps by the time it's 11 o'clock, Douglas is obviously gone, but most folks are a little drunk. I make an effort to get him to sip water. He starts talking louder, as if he were performing for the audience, and ignores me. Claire approaches, sits next to me, and murmurs, "Is he always like this?" I simply shrug. She appears uneasy. I simply remark that he's had a difficult week, which is the most ridiculous justification. It was not a difficult week for him. Everything smells like mildew that's on him, and he just forgot to put his laundry in the washer. Douglas decides it's his moment to shine when someone eventually begins discussing living with partners and the toughest tasks. He gets up and says, "Oh, you want to know what it's like to live with Haley," while raising his drink as if to toast her. She essentially serves as my housekeeper with benefits, good for paying rent and cleaning toilets, but far too dull for anything else. Indeed, when he spoke that aloud to the entire group, everyone froze as if they could see Claire's expression. Did he just say that like, "Mostly it's that embarrassing," but a couple of his friends chuckle? God forbid you pull me into this giggle. I simply get to my feet. I'm not noisy at all. Douglas literally grabs my wrist as I start to move toward the corridor. Enough to halt me, but not too hard. He then does this thing where he says, "Oh look, she's leaving. Come on, Haley, sit down." She doesn't even have the courage to leave, he says, turning to the gathering and swinging my handbag in the air. She's pathetic, is she not? And some people do laugh, not all of them, but enough to make my face flush. Claire is merely gazing at the ground. I remove my wrist, I pull it, and at first he doesn't let go. Nangle, I just stood there for a snack because it wasn't gentle. I just sit back down because I'm not sure what to do and don't want to make things more strange, but I also don't want to cry in front of these folks. I simply place my purse on my lap after removing it from his grasp. I hardly move for the next hour as he continues to stand there, attempting to garner more chuckles, but it's kind of dying down. I pretend to text while browsing through my phone, but all I'm doing is looking at my lock screen. I'm recalling all the occasions I took up his responsibilities, made up for his late payments to Claire, and washed his dishes when he forgot to do so. I also feel like a complete moron, because he is the person who used to bring me coffee in bed when we first started dating and tell me how much he loved me. I am now merely the object of his jokes. After a while, a few folks approach and clumsily inquire about my well-being. I simply say, "I'm all right. I'm simply worn out." "You don't have to stay," Claire whispers softly as she sits next to me, but I don't want to start a scene, so I just shake my head. In addition, Douglas continues to linger around the door as if to protect it. I catch him typing something on Instagram while he's resting against the wall and browsing through his phone. I'm aware that he's probably expressing how nuts I am in his group chat. I really want to go, but every time I get up, he gets in the way. At one point, Claire tries to push past him to let her dog out, but he ignores her and continues to block the corridor until she pushes him away. She only urges him to move after he slips a little, nearly drops his phone, and becomes irate with her for pushing him. As I witness all of this, I realize that he is just like this, and that it's not just me. He must always be the center of attention, I suppose, and he will bring everyone down with him if he feels ignored. Now that I'm sitting there paying attention all night, it's so clear. My phone is buzzing nonstop. Avery texts me to inquire how I'm doing, and I reply that everything is okay. Later, I'll give her a call. My mother also texts me a few times, which is strange, because she usually doesn't text this late, but she asks if I'll be dropping by tomorrow. I nearly respond to give myself an excuse to get out, but I don't want to start a fight in front of these folks. I wait since I know he'll cause a commotion if I go. At last, it is around 200 a.m. and individuals are departing. I pick up my coat, get up, and head for the door. Douglas just looks at me while he stands there with his arms folded. Nothing comes out of my mouth. I simply pass him. He whispers something to himself, not even sure what it was. More of the same, most likely. Claire comes out to hand me my charger after I step outside and stand on the porch for a minute, trying to catch my breath. I didn't unplug it. She tells me to text her about the dryer, but she looks at me as like she wants to say something, if things worsen. I thank her nod and walk away. It takes me about 10 minutes to get home, and during that time, I mentally reenact everything. When I arrive at our flat, I immediately go to bed without speaking to Douglas. When he eventually enters, he slams the door. He doesn't even give me a glance, simply removes his shoes and go to the restroom. To make sure I don't forget anything, I type this out in my notes app while lying there and browsing Reddit. That was my Saturday night anyway. And to the shore, I'm shaking from rage. I'm not going to ignore this, but I'm not sure what I should do next. The second part will be released soon. I just wanted to get this out in case anyone is genuinely interested. If this is a mess, I apologize. I'm still furious. The initial update. Okay, I didn't anticipate returning so soon, but many of you were eager for the next section. In addition, typing it out helps me avoid yelling at my phone. In addition, I believe I'm still too angry to do anything else at the moment. I'm not sure if this can even be read. My nerves are becoming worse because I'm only getting about 4 hours of sleep and drinking a huge iced coffee. All right, let's get started. After that disastrous party, I checked my phone when I woke up and saw a ton of notifications. Douglas, his dad, and his mother left 20 missed calls and SMS. Please give us a call with all of these. Do you feel comfortable with Douglas? Can we discuss about missing FaceTime and messages from his sister and girl? I simply put my phone on silent and spent some time looking at the ceiling. I couldn't handle it. I suppose Douglas passed out after returning home because he was snoring on the couch, which is strange because he never sleeps outside unless he's being dramatic. He rolled over and muttered something as I passed him to get some breakfast. By the way, the kitchen was filthy, as if they were last week's Solo cups. His sink is overflowing with dishes, and the surface is sticky from the time he attempted to make margaritas at home and spilled sugar all over it. To be honest, it appeared as though someone had thrown a toddler party there and neglected to clean up after themselves. I simply gazed at it, thinking I'm the only one who consistently performs any of this. I mean, I can't even recall the last time I reminded him to take out the trash. Despite his constant claims that he's simply not good at spotting mess, he somehow picks up on my mistakes. I attempted to figure out what to do while sipping my coffee. I could just go. I could let Claire know the rent on him by SMS. Right now. To be honest, I want him to feel it even if I just pack up and spend a few days at my mom's or Avery's. I want him to genuinely and metaphorically have to cope with the mess he's created. Since he doesn't, I want him to understand how much I do. He hasn't. Furthermore, I don't feel like being the bigger person after last night. I'm prideful and petty. I began creating a list in my notes app, literally. Every item I purchased, every time I paid his portion of the rent, every bill I prepared, every cleaning product I purchased, and every sporadic item he left behind at the store. The list is lengthy, and I recently picked it up. He likes everything, including toilet paper, paper towels, Swiffer Refills laundry cards, light bulbs, garbage bags, and that dumb scented candle. I spent a good minute scrolling through everything. For 3 months in a row, I paid for his internet usage, and I even located Venmo receipts from the previous year when he was unable to access his account. Never reimbursed me. I'll get it next time, right? I kept saying that. The more I dealt with the situation, the more I began to take photos of items in my flat. The TV, the couch, and myself. When I first moved in, I purchased that. The microwave, the sheets, the plates, and the silverware. With the exception of this unsightly lamp he received from his parents, it was literally all mine. Additionally, he never fixes the broken kettle, despite his repeated promises to do so. I began mentally organizing my belongings, such as what I could bring without a U-Haul. What is it that truly matters to me? How could he possibly notice? Is it gone? I asked Avery via text whether I may use her car for the upcoming weekend. She simply said less and returned the middle finger emoji. Love her. I spent the entire morning ignoring Douglas. He appeared to be in complete death when he shuffled into the kitchen around lunchtime. He rubbed his temples and poured himself some water as a show. I didn't even pretend to be interested in making him breakfast. I just sat there looking through my phone. He eventually made an effort to strike up a conversation by claiming he didn't recall much of the previous evening. You said enough, I said. After a moment of confusion, he became defensive and said, Oh, come on, you know I was kidding. That's how everyone jokes. I didn't say anything. I simply looked at him. He returned to the couch irritated. Once more, my mother called to inquire whether I would be joining her for dinner. I told her I wasn't feeling well, but she could sense something was wrong. I would send her a text. I merely laughed when she later asked if Douglas would be attending. She simply told me to call if I needed anything without pressuring me. I should have told her then, to be honest, but I didn't want to deal with the whole "we warned you about him" thing. Parents never tolerate that. Douglas texted his buddies and browsed TikTok on his phone for the remainder of the afternoon. He laughed a few times and I heard it. Then he became quite silent. He was in a group chat with his college pals Carson and Andrew, who were discussing how embarrassing last night was when I glanced in. Claire appeared angry, according to someone. Douglas simply stated that she will move on. She does it every time, just in case I snapped a screenshot and saved it. Just some evidence that he is aware that he is a jerk, not for extortion or anything. I started packing my belongings at 5 o'clock. Just small things, not everything. My laptop, my headphones, my favorite hoodie, my chargers, novels, and makeup. Things he had never even realized were gone. I packed everything in my luggage and drove off. He simply instructed me to bring back some chips if I made a stop at the store without even asking where I was going. I shut the door firmly. I drove to Avery's to drop off my stuff after spending a minute in the car just breathing. She simply brought me a Coke and turned on some music without asking any questions. I nearly burst into tears but refrained. Douglas was ranting at a child online about camping in Spawn while playing Xbox when I returned. I entered the bedroom and began searching the closet. He always leaves his belongings in a heap on the floor, even though I own half of the clothes in there. I began packing my belongings into a laundry bag. He asked me what I was doing as soon as he entered. Laundry, I simply said. With a shrug, he returned to his work. I prepared dinner exclusively for myself. He entered and inquired about his whereabouts. He could make his own, I assured him. In fact, his pout was real and childlike. I simply ignored him and proceeded to my room. I texted Claire all night long. She told me she was just ashamed for everyone when I inquired how she was doing after yesterday night. She apologized that I had to deal with Douglas and asked me to let her know if I ever needed anything related to the flat. I inquired as to whether she believed her father would allow Douglas to remain if I moved out. "Well, you're not on the lease, are you?" she asked. "Only him. When we moved in, he promised to take care of the paperwork and never list my name. So I said, yeah, just him," stated that it would be simpler. "Then he's liable for the rent," she said. "Good to know," I answered. She replied with an emoji of a thumbs up. I began to feel somewhat better. I began relocating more of my belongings the following morning. He was so preoccupied with arguing with Andrew about fantasy football and griping about the Wi-Fi that Douglas hardly noticed. I began unplugging my belongings and packing them into boxes. I paid for the router, which I stole, the air fryer, my blender, my throw pillows, the coffee maker, and the kitchen utensils. I left everything of his junk, including his gaming chair, outdated laptop, and a collection of stray wires that he claims he will sort up sometime. To get help with the important things, I texted Avery. About 2 o'clock, she pulled up. We packed boxes into her car. He asked us what we were doing when he came out. "Moving some things," I said. With a simple nod, he returned inside. I left the necessities for the following day. My bathroom supplies my dresser and my bed. I assumed that he would be at the gym when I returned. Like clockwork, he leaves every Tuesday at 6. Constantly shares a sweaty selfie in the mirror on Snapchat. I informed Claire via text that I would be leaving by the weekend. "Just let me know if there are any problems," she said. I informed her that I would put my keys in the mailbox that evening. Douglas pretended if nothing was strange. "Want to watch something?" he offered. "No thanks," I replied. He sulked once again. It nearly made me chuckle. He grumbled that there was no one in the kitchen. "Maybe go to the store," I said. "Why are you acting this way?" he said. "You know what you did?" I asked. Rolling his eyes, he turned to leave. I stayed in the bathroom for about 20 minutes after slamming the door. My mother called once more. When I did respond, I informed her that I was leaving. "Oh, honey," she said. She didn't seem surprised at all. "Do you need help moving?" she asked. "Maybe," I replied, "but Avery has it." "Want to stay here for a while?" she asked. "Maybe, but I think I'll be all right," I said. "All right, just let me know," she said. I nearly told her everything, but chose not to. This is where things start to improve. At 6 the following day, Douglas heads to the gym. After I text Avery, she comes over and we gather my remaining belongings. Everything he owes me for the past year, rent bills, groceries, cleaning supplies, is listed in a note I leave on the counter. And a note. "It's your turn to pay. Remember the restrooms." My keys were placed in the mailbox. I give the apartment one last glance. It appears devoid, disorganized, strange, and girlish. I'm a little sorry. But then I recall him calling me pitiful while he waved my handbag in the air. I leave without turning around. I visit Avery's. We spend hours watching YouTube videos together after she gives me a drink. My mother texted me to express her pride in me. I don't respond immediately away because I need some alone time. Douglas sends me a series of texts later that evening. He is upset and accuses me of being selfish for leaving him with all the debts. He says he's shocked that I'm doing this to him. He calls, I ignore it, and he keeps calling, so I block him. I don't respond. I block both his mother and his sister, just in case I block Carson and Andrew. I inform Claire via text that I'm going out. "Thank you for informing me," she says. "I want to know if Douglas has already paid the rent." "Not yet," she says. "Good luck with that," I say. That's where I am then. I'm gone. I also left him with an unavoidable mess. He always aspired to be the big guy, the boss, and the one who never made a mistake. He now has the opportunity to learn how to both literally and figuratively pick up after himself. Nor am I claiming to be finished. I can play games with him if he wants to, but I'll let him stew for the time being. Perhaps he will now see how pitiful he truly is. If you would like more updates, please let me know. This doesn't seem to be finished yet. An update then. Alright, so I didn't anticipate blogging again so quickly, but people keep asking for updates, and to be honest, things got messier than I could have ever imagined. I also kind of need a place to scream, because if I keep shouting about it in my group chat, Avery will come to my door with a baseball bat and a bottle, and I'm not sure who she will hit first, Douglas or me. I honestly believed that Douglas would simply ignore me when I moved out, perhaps even try disparaging me in front of his friends, and then move on. He went all drama mode though, as if I hadn't even left Avery's car. And the first irate text is sent to me, then another, and yet another. In all caps, he claims that I set him up, that I'm wrecking his life, and that his parents are phoning him constantly to find out what happened because they thought I was missing. Like, dude, perhaps you ought to have considered that before you began referring to me as your maid in front of everyone. In any case, I choose to disregard it all because I don't want to give in to his pressure. I've previously blocked him as Avery keeps urging me to, but he starts using different numbers and DMs me on Facebook, which I haven't checked since last year, and Instagram. I simply don't read anything. I believe he's hoping I'll return to silence him, but this time, no. I was surprised by how quickly his financial issues would surface. Perhaps 2 days after I departed, Claire texted me to inquire if I knew when Douglas would be making his rent payment. I just texted her, "Not my circus anymore," and sent a screenshot of his most recent "I'll get it next time" text. She simply responded with a yikes and many laughing emojis. I literally informed her I was out, so it's amusing that he apparently told her that I would cover for him if there were any problems. I suppose he genuinely believed that I would continue to do his errands remotely. This is where the drama in the group conversation gets hot. Background mostly for stupid memes, party invites, and squabbling over where to get takeout. Douglas and I were in a group chat with a couple of his pals, Andrew, Carson, Gabriella, and some of their women. After a long period of silence, I decide, you know what, I will not remain silent if he attempts to portray myself as the villain. I therefore send a message. Just facts, not anger. "Hey, here are all the rent receipts because Douglas keeps contacting me about leaving him. This is what I purchased. Here are screenshots of his texts regarding training me and his made with benefits joke. I'm only trying to set the facts straight, not to start a conflict." That conversation blew up NGL. Douglas was defended by 2 of the guys who claimed that he was simply intoxicated and didn't intend it. Gabriella says she's pleased I left because she always felt he treated me badly. I simply send a picture of the note I left on the counter with the entire amount he owes me for the year, despite Andrew's attempts to claim I'm being dramatic. After an hour or 2 of silence, Carson finally sends me a private message to check on me and ask if I need assistance moving anything else. I'm fine, but thank you. He simply states that Douglas is struggling, and I don't respond. Claire informs me that Douglas missed rent for the first time ever, and seemed to try to place the blame on me, thus her dad is now involved. To him. The lease doesn't even include my name, so I'm like, good luck. Her father is irate and threatens to fire Douglas if he doesn't pay within a week. Douglas trying to argue his way out of it all is almost a realistic scenario in my mind. Fake charm isn't working in everyday life right now. All I'm trying to do is keep things going. We're joking about how I should bill Douglas for maid services while I'm staying at Avery's for a few days and sleeping on her couch. Every day, my mom calls to check on me. I always respond that I'm good, but she keeps offering to bring over groceries or come get me if I need a break. When I eventually visit for supper, she prepares lasagna without saying, "I told you so," which angle essentially functions as her hug. He tries texting Avery to ask her to help me understand. She blocks him after sending him a single, "Don't ever text me again" message. I adore her for it. Carson simply leaves him on red when he tries him. I let Andrew's attempt to call me go to voicemail. He writes incoherently that everyone makes mistakes and that Douglas is in a poor position. I simply remove it. I don't want to feel guilty for solving his issues. Therefore, it is true that social pressure is effective. His poor me act isn't being bought by anyone. According to Claire, her dad has moved on and is prepared to begin displaying the property to new visitors. Douglas has about 3 days if he is unable to pay the rent by Friday. I won't tell lies. That gives me a small sense of fulfillment. I've been discreetly taking care of everything for more than a year, including cleaning bill payment, apologizing to Claire for late payments, and filling in for him with his parents. He's flailing now that he has to take full responsibility for everything. The best aspect is that there are actual repercussions. Claire's father doesn't take it personally. He says it's just business. Douglas must depart if he doesn't pay. According to Carson, Douglas is attempting to borrow money from everyone, but no one is willing to give him any money since they all know he won't repay them. Even his favorite hype man, Andrew, admits he has debts to pay. Gabriella apologizes to me for not noticing his treatment of me sooner. I simply assure her it's okay, I'm doing fine. Now that I've banned her primary phone, I receive a text from his mother, Douglas, asking if I'll provide a hand to him only once for the sake of old times. She claims that he is having a lot of trouble keeping up with things. I simply reply with a text. I'm not his maid. She never responds. Oh, and I'm not sorry, but this is petty. I returned to the flat with Claire a few days after I left. She allowed me to take my old blender, which Douglas never used, but insisted on preserving in case he was there a box of books and the rest of my belongings. He also attempted to fight with me, claiming that I didn't have to disclose that I had destroyed his life. You did that yourself, I merely said. I shoved past him when he tried to obstruct me by standing in the corridor and not moving. Behind me, he slammed his door. He's no longer your problem, Claire remarked, rolling her eyes. I don't know. I packed up and went. I think I'm finally realizing how entitled he was with his attitude, as if he actually thought I would always laugh off his jokes, pay his bills, clean up after him, and cover for him. I was good at keeping things together, he used to claim. But in reality, he didn't want to do any of it, and he attempted to paint me as the bad guy after he was called out. He's stuck now. He only has himself to blame, and his attempts to paint me as the villain always end in failure. The act is beginning to be exposed. I used to get calls from his parents about everything. Haley, did you remind Douglas to locate his insurance card and call his grandmother Haley? They understand they can't use guilt to get me to correct it. I just finished. I'm not being harsh. I'll provide an update if anything else crazy occurs. However, I believe that he is finally beginning to face his own issue. Trust me, if you're reading this and you're the Haley in your relationship, you owe no one your credit score or your sanity, unless you attempt something else. I suppose that's it for now. This, to be honest, wouldn't surprise me in the least. Last update. Okay, so unless something really crazy happens, this is probably going to be my last post for a while. I'm tired and need to really start working on my own projects, so NGL. However, I promised a final summary, and to be honest, there is a lot of it. Thanks for the support, the DMs, the girl, the same remarks, and everything else, assuming you're still reading. It's strangely pleasant because I'm not used to random strangers on the internet cheering me on. I mostly simply wanted to know if Douglas would pay his rent after the last post, or if he would be evicted and ABH. Sincerely, I didn't imagine he would die without making one more pitiful move. I wasn't incorrect, but let me start with the most peculiar aspect of his parents first. I still got 20 missed calls from his parents, including his sister on her old phone the morning after I finally left. Not sure. I continued to ignore them, and eventually I began to feel a little selfish for not even responding to their texts. I'm still alive, so please go away. However, my phone starts exploding once more at lunchtime. The numbers are the same, but there are lengthy voicemails now, and his mother is hysterical, pleading with me to simply speak with her. She claims that Douglas is in poor health, that he hasn't eaten, and is unable to sleep, and that he has never been this way before. I hear about half of a message, roll my eyes, and then just yell and delete it. I'm not heartless, but I'm no longer his go-between. I am neither his maid, nor am I his therapist or mom. She then begins emailing my mother as if she were my real mother, which is the next thing that truly makes me want to turn the tables. From the one occasion they met at a holiday event, I suppose she still had her phone number. My mother called me and asked, "Is everything okay?" And that's how I found out. Douglas. He needs you to return and reason with him because his mother claims he is unable to pay the rent. I told my mom straight out, "Nope, I'm done," but she sounded exhausted, as if she was expecting me to announce I was getting back together with him. He is alone. Please stop responding to her. She simply said, "Okay," and inquired as to whether I needed her to bring groceries. Douglas continues to call. He is now alternating between being angry and depressed. In a split second, you destroyed my life. It's the next time. I apologize. Return. I'll be different. I don't answer any calls. I block everything when he tries new numbers or even FaceTimes me. To be honest, it's similar to whack-a-mole. It makes Avery laugh all the time. Says I should begin billing him on a call basis. Claire texted me to let me know that her father had finally given Douglas the formal notice. If he is unable to pay, he must leave by Friday. He apparently claimed that his ex-partner had sabotaged him in an attempt to obtain an extension. "It's none of my concern," Claire's father just remarked. "Make a payment or relocate." Douglas then makes an effort to blame everyone else. According to Carson's text message, Douglas attempted to borrow money from him and claimed that I had stolen his belongings. Not at all. I left all the other receipts and simply took what was rightfully mine. Gabriella tells me that Douglas DM'd her and asked if she could attest to him. Claire's father inquired about her payment history. It brightened my night when she gave him a gif of a female giggling. Andrew is the only one who doesn't appear to be siding, but that's only because he detests drama, not because he's impartial. As his life motto, he texts me and says he doesn't want to become engaged. Claire texted me on Thursday to let me know that Douglas was in full panic mode. Rent, internet, and most likely, even his sporadic subscriptions are all behind him. I continue to receive emails on his previous food box service, which I suppose is not my concern. After attempting to reach Claire's father once more without success, he called his mother, who then contacted me once more. I'm so irritated that I pick up this time. She begins by saying, "Please, Haley, I know he made a mistake, but he's completely lost without you. He struggles to deal with life's challenges. You are aware of his nature." I simply apologized. "I'm no longer involved in this. You should speak with your son, not with me." It's awkward when she begins to weep, so I simply say goodbye and end the call. Douglas has always gotten away with treating people this way, which is, in my opinion, the true reason. As if his parents were taking care of him. His pals either laugh it off or ignore it. And I was only the most recent to take over. When he's nervous, he jokes, and when he's humiliated, he gets loud. If that doesn't work, he simply expects someone else to come and solve it. Although I was aware of his laziness, it wasn't until I quit cleaning up after him that I realized how much he relied on others to do it. Anyway, Friday arrives. At least it's mine, even though my new abode is really a shoebox. I'm eating leftover noodles when Claire texts me. He's out with just a thumbs up. Evidently, Douglas simply left his belongings there without paying or packing up half of them. Although the locks have been changed and he no longer resides there, Claire's father stated he may come get the remainder if he so desired. If he make a scene, I inquire. All she says is that he cried a little, shut the door, and walked away. For a brief moment, I feel sorry for him, but then I recall his behavior at that party, and I'm like, no, I don't. And to make matters worse, he knocks on my door in an attempt to go to my new residence. I peek out the window when I hear it. Do you see him standing there with a grocery bag in his hand and his hoodie pulled up? The door is not opened by me. When I text Avery, who is actually in the building next door, she emerges, stands on the sidewalk, and simply looks at him until he walks away. He simply leaves without making an effort to speak with her. I got an SMS from Avery. The man is lost, just in case I block his number once more. I receive a letter in my mailbox the next day. It's handwritten and from Douglas, which is crazy. He only writes when absolutely necessary. It's like 3 lines of excuses, apologies, pleading for another chance, claiming that he didn't mean any of it, that he can't do this alone, and so on. He even promises to reimburse me for everything if I simply return. I tear it up and throw it away. I'm not even inclined to respond. I suppose that's it. Douglas has left. I'm leaving. The apartment is already being cleaned by Claire's family in preparation for new residents. His parents made every effort, even gave my mother another call. Now she simply ignores them. According to Gabriella, Andrew is not happy that Douglas is couch surfing at his house and is likely to evict him shortly. Although Carson is still indifferent, he texted me to let me know that Douglas is considering returning to live with his parents. To be honest, I'm simply relieved that I'm not the one who has to clean up after him anymore. I'll simply chuckle and move on the next time someone calls me uninteresting. Sincerely, I'd rather be uninteresting and unencumbered than forced to pick up after a guy who believes he's the main character. Thank you for taking the time to read my insane tale. Avoid waiting for a major realization if you're doing all the effort and someone treats you like the helper. Simply begin packing. The speed at which the trash removes itself will surprise you. No, I didn't give his parents a call back. Not my monkeys, not my circus. Learning how to wash his own laundry, or at the very least, how to pay his own rent, is a good place for Douglas to start if he wants to organize his life. For now, that's all. I might write about something enjoyable the next time. Peace, everyone.